Hello and welcome to our programme on Windrush 2020.
Hello, Auntie Ness. Hi, how are you? Hi, Trevor. Hello, Gloria. How are you? There you go. How are you doing, Gloria?
Not too bad, thanks.
Great. So, Carolyn, this is Gloria.
Hello.
This is Dawn.
Hi, Mrs. Dunn. Hi, Auntie Nez.
And
Hi.
Auntie Nez to you, Mrs. Muttington to me. So what we're going to do is we're going to just go through and ask both of you. I'll start with you, Gloria. If you could just tell me a little bit about yourself.
Oh, dear. You just start with somebody else. All right. What do you want to know?
I would like to know, so your name is Gloria Dunn.
Yeah.
And where are you from, Gloria? Which island did you come from?
Jamaica, Clarendon.
Clarendon. And how old was you when you travelled to the UK?
Oh, I was 18.
You was 18.
Uh-huh.
And why did you come to the UK?
Because my husband sent for me, was my boyfriend then.
Yeah. So what was your intentions when you came to the UK? What was you expecting?
Oh, well, I expect to maybe get married and return home in 5 years, which never happened.
So speak to us a little bit about what it was like for you, your journey, and when you arrived here. Just speak to us a little bit about that.
Yeah, my journey was all right. I arrived at Gatwick, and my husband didn't come to my husband now didn't come to meet me, so I was stranded. And anyway, they were very nice. They get me in a taxi, and I reached my destination about 1 a.m. in the morning. It was very cold, but it was November.
That's great. Carolyn, you wanted to ask something?
No, I was just wondering how you came over, Mrs. Dunn. Did you come over on the
747?
Okay. Yeah, and what year?
1961.
Oh, okay.
And Mrs. Dunn, where did you arrive to?
In Slough, Wellesley Road.
Wesley Road. Great.
Yeah.
And was there a lot of people sharing the same accommodation?
It was my husband's sister's house, so there was a lot of us.
Okay. And what was the plan of action to get out of the house, to get your own house? How did that come about?
Oh, well, we moved from there because they wanted the room, so we had to go to somewhere else. I think it was Colonial Road. From there, we went to Datchet Road, which is now the Merck. And from there, God was so good that we decided to save up and bought this house, which we have a lot of problem because in those days we couldn't obtain mortgage, and went up to the mortgage and they turned us down. But then this man, Hunter Nash, he was so good.
Mm-hmm.
He got us the mortgage, and that's when we moved to King Edward Street.
Oh, okay.
And that was in 1966. Sorry. It's so good to me.
Great.
So that was at about the time when you were planning. That was about nearly 5 years into it when you were planning to actually go. So when did you decide? When you bought the house, did you then decide you were going to stay in the UK?
Well, we had no choice because we have a house then, have a family, so we just couldn't go back, but we were still planning to go back, eventually. But then it never worked out. And then later on in years, about in 1980, 86, we decided now that we'll definitely go back. And then we started building a house there, but that didn't come off. And then my husband still wanted to go back, but then I says, no, I'm not going to go back because things didn't work out. And I says, oh, well, might as well I stay here. There's no point in me going back then because the children have grown up. All my family there died out. I only have one brother. And I was thinking about if I get old, what's going to happen to me? You know, if one of us go up there and one passed away, what's going to happen? So I says, no, I'm staying put.
Were you able to go there for holidays?
Oh, yes. Yes.
So when you went for holidays, Mrs. Dunn, did you still consider yourself more British now than Jamaican?
No, I did consider myself Jamaican. I'll always consider myself Jamaican, really.
But when you went back, did you feel like your people that you'd left there, your family and so forth, were they welcoming when you came back, or did it feel different?
The family was welcoming, but the other people wasn't welcoming because they was calling us foreigners all the time. You know, you're from foreign, you know. But the relatives were welcoming.
Great. So Mrs. Dunn, if we just hold on, let us just have a word with Inez. So can you let us know, introduce yourself and which island that you came from?
I'm Inez Hodge Mussington, and I came from Anguilla.
And how old was you when you travelled, and why did you travel?
I was in my 20s when I came. I think I came after the Windrush, though. I came by plane to England. And funny enough, this month, in the next, just under 3 weeks from now, will make 54 years since I came to this country.
And what was your reason for coming?
Just like what Don said, I came to get married to Mr. Mussington.
And your life changed when you came to get married to your sweetheart.
Well, yes. But the first few months, I came in June, so it was kind of, for me, it was still cold. And then when it really set in to be cold, I just always would say, look, I want to go back home. I'm not going to stay here. It's too cold to live here. But as the children came, the coldness went, and you just get yourself acclimatized to the weather, and everything was okay afterwards. And my first return, which Carolyn know about, and she may remember that year better than I do, we all went down together.
Yeah.
76
or 77? 76?
76 maybe, yeah.
So
was that your first time back then, Auntie Nez?
Yes. That was with Trevor and Cheryl, yeah.
Cheryl. Yeah.
Couldn't afford to go before, but I just was trying to get something together for mortgage bills and food. So you couldn't really put up anything for a holiday until you make a real sacrifice. By then I was doing little part-time jobs that help a great deal.
In terms of you two, Gloria and Inez, coming as young women, coming to follow the love of your life, coming to follow your fiancé, your boyfriend, when you came here as a young person, how did you find the reception coming to the motherland?
So because I wasn't working in the first years, I did work before I started the family, but it was just in Sainsbury's, and they were very good. I used to pack meat, but the meat and Karen and baby did not agree. So therefore I had to leave before the time was up. Mm-hmm. So I used to be sick, and you couldn't be sick and wrapping meat. So then I had Trevor, and soon after, within 10 months, I had Cheryl, so you could see my situation where I could not work. So I had no mix with other people different than my own family. Different than the neighbors, you just say hello to and what next, but not going into their house for a cup of coffee or nothing like that. So I was more like on my own. I had Otnell, who just passed, and his wife as our neighbors.
And where were you living then, Lewins Way?
Yes, in Sydenham, yeah.
That was your first home that you bought?
Yes, and then 70. Then came the Jubilee, and it was a street party, 77. And that was nice with the street get together and everybody mingling together. And soon after, I got pregnant with Kevin. So that's why I moved down to Porges Lane, and I was expecting him.
And when you first arrived in the UK, where did you live then?
Oh, by Dorothy, your mom, my sister.
Oh, okay.
You don't remember that, Carolyn?
No.
So
no,
yeah,
no.
you were just 6 months or something like that, isn't it?
Okay. Wow.
What you say? Yes, I came in June. You born in December.
Yeah.
Yes,
Same year, 66.
I think you were still a baby. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh wow.
So let's hear a little bit about Mrs. Dunn. How did you find your expectations of the motherland and getting jobs and that sort of thing? How did you find that was?
Well, I didn't like it at all because I thought I find the white people, they were very, I wouldn't call it prejudice, but when you talk to them, you know, they would look down on you a bit. You know, I didn't like it. I wanted to go home anyway. But but after a while, I started working at Johnson's & Johnson's, the one that made the baby powder. And then from there, I went to Wexham, and then it was different there. I spent 2 years there. And then after that, I went into social services, but I find that was all right, you know, because I spent 23 years there. That was fine. I like it there. You know, I used to get on with the Irish girl better than the English girl, come to think of it. I think we have something more in common.
More in common. So do you feel that as young people coming to the motherland, coming to a strange place, for many people, it was the first time they were seeing the migration of Caribbean people. Do you feel that you helped to make a difference?
Of course we do. Yeah, we all do. Because when we first came, the job I first had as a care assistant, none of the white people wanted to do it. You know, they were looking down at us as if we're doing meaning jobs. You know, they didn't want to do it. And it was only us people, the foreigners, I would call it, that was doing all these jobs, you know? So.
How do you feel about that, Inez? Do you feel that you made a difference?
Yes, where I was working first, what I gathered then, that the women, they will just speak about their holiday, and this money is for their holiday because they saying like they just rely on the council for their home, their housing. And when they get that money, they stop work for a while. At those days, so you could stop and come back to a job, so it didn't matter. So they work for their holiday money and then decide not to work maybe for the next 5 or 6 months until they need that money to use for a purpose, you know? And so that was, which was 67, 66. And then I worked at the cleaner's place there in Church Street, and the laundrette. It was called, is it Berkshire? Cleaning service. Anyhow, it was a laundrette service. And from there, I went to Upton to work, which I stayed there for close to 40 years working there. 1 year days, and then I went on to nights until when I retire. And so, as well, with the job, again, the whites never wanted to work nights. So we again was a unit of more black working nights than whites. Just one or two might have done it in the latter years. But at the beginning, it was just blacks to black. So I didn't have much communication with the whites as some people might experience, you know. But one thing is when I came here, especially living in Sippenham, I wasn't able to go to church as I would like to. For many reasons, the distance, the busing, and what next. And then when I was able to go and I said to Ashley, let's go, just what Gloria mentioned about how they would do with you and the thing you was fitting in their class. He said to me, I'm not going back to church because they had no good welcoming for black people, which I have heard over and over. About the way I did not experience it, but they who came before experienced that hostility. When they go to church, they wasn't well welcome. So because of that, a lot of them did not want to go back to church.
So was Ashley here a long time before you then?
He was here like when your mom was here, whatever, in the 50s. Okay. And then part of the 50s, 59, I think, 58, 59, somewhere there.
When was that the same for you, Mrs. Dunn? Was your husband here for a while before you came over to join you? He was here. Yeah,
he was here about a year.
Oh, that wasn't long.
Yeah.
And what year did you arrive, Mrs. Dunn?
1961.
Right.
61, yeah.
And how do Mrs. Dunn and Mrs. Mussington, how do you feel that you as young Caribbean people, how did you deal with the equality? How did it start to change over the years? Because as you first arrived, it would have been quite hostile and standoffish. And then for it to become an equal opportunity or a diverse community, what would you say? How did that feel? Or when could you say that you noticed the difference?
I think when it's changed, because there was when Enoch Powell, he began to start about that blood is going to thing. It was very hostile then with the white people. But then I think it started changing when Margaret Thatcher got into power. It started changing. You could see a bit of change there, you know. And the thing about it is the people that are, the English people that are well educated, you don't get no hostile for them. It's the other ones that you get the hostile from, really. You know, they look down on you, but the ones that are really educated, they appreciate what you do. And especially when you're in the caring profession, they appreciate what you're doing for their mom or dad or brother, sister, whatever.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mrs. Mussington, what would you say?
As I said, I didn't experience that hostility because by then things has changed a bit more, much more than how they met it. You know, yes, I didn't make that type of experience that they had.
And I think also apart from, because Mrs. Dunn is from Jamaica and you're from Anguilla, and I think maybe, do you feel that there was a little divide amongst the islands? You know, like they would say Jamaicans, Anguillians or Antiguans, or do you think there was a little bit of divide amongst the islands?
Well, for me,
yes,
for me, I would have been Jamaican because they call every person with this skin Jamaican. So I don't think it did make any difference at that time.
Right. I think, and you're saying yes, Mrs. Dunn. What would you say about that?
Yes, there was a little bit, you know, but after you get to work with them and know them, you know, you get on very well with them because, well, I'll call her a friend. It was Ina's sister, Dorothy. We used to get on so well. I even got her the job at Gurney House when we were working there.
I remember that.
Sorry?
I say, remember when Dorothy and you used to work there together?
Yes, that's right. We were very friendly. So after a while, you get it depends on the person, really, you know.
Was that a mentality that came from the Caribbean that made you guys think, oh, this island and that island, or was that something that you learned when you came to the UK?
It's only when I came, tell you the truth, when I came to the UK, I thought the only black person was Jamaicans and Africans.
Right.
I didn't know that there was no other island that have black people. I know about the island but I didn't know that they were black, like myself, you know. Yes. And it's only when I heard them talking, I says, hang on a minute here, they're not Jamaicans. And then I says, where are you from? And then they'll say which country they're from, which island they're from, you know. So.
Oh, was that the same for you at Auntie Nares as well?
Not really, but here what Don is saying, then you can see what used to happen really with a white man calling everybody Jamaicans, because she's saying she didn't realize the other Caribbean islands would add black people, only Africa. So as we grow up, sometimes we don't expand to think of other people, where they come from, who they are, and what next, until when you really come and meet each other. And then you realize that the Caribbean, almost all black people are. So.
And I think over the years, how have you felt about embracing? I'm sure that many families have a lot of other nationalities in their family, you know. So you have your children who have interracial relationships, and you embrace that. And how do you feel about that?
Well, I think every person should choose who they think they can live with for the balance of their lives. Sometimes it doesn't happen, but it's their choice at the end of the day. I mean, you sometimes may tell them, you know, it would be nice to think of the same color, but you can't compel them. They do what they want.
I'm sorry, Mrs. Mussington, if you was to tell your children to think of the same colour, do you think that was to try and protect them?
Well, it was a lot of nice young black girls around that might have fit in well. Mm-hmm. But saying that, both of my sons did fall in love with black girls, and their parents did not welcome them. So that is an issue with our own colour.
Mrs. Dunn, how did you feel about embracing different nationalities?
I don't mind. I'll tell them exactly that I don't approve of it, but it's their choice. And if they're happy, I'm happy. You know, and I don't have any problems with it, really. That's their choice, and you have to go with their choice.
For instance, Kevin, he had this girl. She was a lovely girl. She worked at Wrexham, and whenever she see us, she still always would come and say hello. And he loved her. And one day, he walked back. They were young, still school children, for she went on to uni. And he walked her back to our home. And the father opened the door, and it was pouring with rain. And he wasn't allowed to go in. He had to come back out in that rain. And that is a black person. And I am sure the other way around, white, he would have been welcome in that house until the rain finished. So you see, when black boys or girls sometimes marry someone else, it's how they've been welcome in the family.
Yes. So how have you been dealing with the COVID-19 and the coronavirus? How have you been coping with it, and what changes has it made to your life?
Well, sometimes it can be very stressful. So it's all right. It's all right. I'm getting used to it now.
And what about you, Mrs. Mussington?
For me, it wasn't too bad. I venture out a few times, maybe once a fortnight or once every 3 weeks. Otherwise, maybe what I miss is really getting on the bus and going out of town, which now I can't do, and I don't know when that will ever happen because the stores are not open. You can't go over 5 miles at this present stage either to go anywhere. But all in all, I really get accustomed to it. It hasn't bothered me very badly. As Don say, you tend to touch more with your family, and God bless WhatsApp because I'm able to connect with my family back home pretty often and exchange these nice messages from friends and so, which is quite good as well. So you start sending them to other people to enjoy. So yes, it's not too bad. And I think my other half, he hasn't said it, but I think he's glad.
So with regards to what's happened, which was a terrible, terrible thing with this young man, George Floyd, getting, you know, and in this day and age to see a police officer, you know, doing that, even though there was people around saying, stop, stop, stop. You know, how do you feel about Black lives and, you know, how do they matter? You know, there's a lot of young people protesting right now and saying Black life matters. As an elder, how would you advise those young people to deal with these situations? Gloria, if you go first.
I'm all for them to protest, but it's the rioting and the rioting that they're doing. I'm not with that at all. You know, but yes, protest, yes, I'm all for that because that's a terrible thing they had done to that man. You know, we're all human and it doesn't matter whether we're Black or white. We should be treated as human. You know, it's only what the rioting and that. I totally disagree with that. But they should protest because that's the only way things is going to change. Because in the 60s, if you remember you wouldn't remember that anyway. Martin Luther King, he protests and things did change. And that's the only way things is going to change and government is going to listen to them. But the rioting, no. I didn't agree with that at all.
And what about you, Mrs. Mussington?
I disagree with the rioting and breaking down buildings and taking things. I think that wasn't called for. For if you just march in sympathy, people goes more with you. That type of action can put people against you as well. For what they call them, hooligans, no good. And but it was an awful thing to look at. But the more it's been publicized, you see that it happened before. Some of it was in the same way, where they choked people to death, and it was no cameras around like it is today. So those people die, and then the police would always give it their version, and the coroner will say, yes, but he had underlying issues, and that's the reason why he died. But even if he had underlying issues, it wasn't causing him a problem to be sick to die. But they're not looking at it in that broader way. They just look at what the police tell them. So over the years, a lot of Black people has died. And I think the anger boiled over. And some of the action they were doing was really because they could not get to the right people, so they explode in a violent way. And I don't know, but all I say, as Don said about Martin Luther King, you think that would go forward, but then the connection of phoning and letting people know what's happening was not around. Today you can get in touch with people in such a short flick of time that these things will carry on. And I hope by the end of the day that things will change and change for the better, because we got a lot of the white ones coming in and standing with us for better. So I hope out of this, something good comes out for the next generation. But it's a shame he's gone and he's not to see this. And another family would like 100 times over that their brother was still alive, not for what Trump had to say, and tell him he's looking down underneath and he's saying it's good to what is going on. I think that was so terrible. He just opened his mouth and just let words flutter out with every time he speaks, each time it's worse. And I don't understand him.
I think as our generation, it's very admirable when we look at the first Windrush people that came, and they were greeted with no dogs, no black, no Irish, and they were greeted with a lot of things. You know, they were not able to get some of the jobs that they were qualified to get. They had to get menial jobs. They had to start at the bottom. And as a child of the Windrush generation, as they put it, you know, I know that a lot of Windrush people came from Jamaica and St. Vincent, but now they're using that term to just mean Caribbean migration. So as a child of the Caribbean migration, you know, we look up to you with admiration. We look up to you because you didn't leave things make you anger. You know, you didn't leave things make you, you know, commit crimes. And a lot of our elders, they were upholding law citizens. They were very, very, you know, good role models. You actually believed in marriage, you know, so a lot of our younger generation, they're not getting married. There's a lot of single parenting going on. You guys believed in marriage. You two came because you followed your sweetheart, you know, you believed in marriage. And if you could send a message of something for the young people to keep them on track and to keep them, what would you say from your experience? What would be that message that you would say to them, Gloria?
I would say that this country is a good country. And if you have education and ambition, you'll get far. You shouldn't follow bad company. You should listen to what your parents have to say. Sometimes it may not be right, but parents, if you listen to your parents, you'll go a long way. And like I said, education is the main thing. And if you have education and ambition, you'll get somewhere.
Thank you, Gloria. And what would you say, Mrs. Mussington?
Yeah. Speaking about education, many Black people right in their first year in school has been put down. Some can rise over it and some just go, you know, it does affect them. And I was speaking to Carolyn earlier today about, for instance, with Trevor, when he went to school, every evening he comes home and he will go to sleep, he'll pout and go to sleep. And I just feel having Cheryl as a baby might have been a bit of a jealousy. And it's only when he was leaving primary school, the teacher called me and said to me, Mrs. Mustin, she said, do you know that Kevin, Trevor, would have go further afield in his work at school? She said, what a teacher. She didn't call the teacher name. She said, don't put me in trouble. But she said, whenever he put up his hand to answer a question, she would shout at him and tell him, put down his hand. And you know, for a small child like that, to have to experience that in a tender age is awful. And this is one of the things I think maybe still going on with Black children in school today. Only that the parents may get a bit more out of the child, or the child may be able to open up more to the parents, tell them what's happening. But it's awful.
Can I come in there a minute?
Mm-hmm.
You know,
yeah.
Nowadays it was like that, but nowadays it's not at all like that. At least you can go somewhere. You know, at least if the child is not doing well, you get a report and you'll see the report what the child is up to, and you can sort it out with the teachers.
Yes,
you know, it's different when our children but these younger ones are coming up now. It's so much different.
Yes, that's what I said. It's much better in that respect now for the children, because they open up to so many things that they would have, that us would sit down on. They won't take it that way.
But also in that, I think there's a lot of responsibility that falls with us as parents to see and notice what our children are doing when they're in school, what their report cards are, have that dialogue with the teachers as well. Because if I can give you an example of when one of my children was in secondary school, and this a very generic sentence came in his report about how well he's doing and how pleased he is for the work that he was doing. And his grade was something like 20%. I was like, well, why are you so happy that my son's on a 20% grade? This doesn't make any sense. Long story short, it was maths. And when I spoke to the teacher, he apologised, and not saying it verbatim, but essentially it was the same paragraph that was cut and pasted onto most of the children's reports. And I wasn't happy with that. And I spoke to the head teacher, who, when he looked into it, said, but hold on, your son was more than above average in his maths when he started this school. Why is he fallen to 20%? And that was picked up on, that was worked on, and we move forward. We have to be involved in what our children are doing at school as well. We cannot leave it to just the teachers.
Yeah, you had a step over us, and the reason for that step over us, you school here. And as you school, it broadens your ideas and how you can go forward with these things. Us coming from the Caribbean, it's a different type of way we would deal with it.
That's true.
But I think as well, I was fortunate enough to spend time back in the Caribbean, and I took my children. So I was born here, my children was born here, but I took them back to the Caribbean. And it was the most amazing thing that I could have done, because here in the school, even though they had education, they weren't taking 100% advantage of it. And when I took them back home, the system of prayer outside the door, checking their fingernails, checking their teeth, checking their hygiene, checking their spellings, when they came back from spending that year in the Caribbean schooling, when they came back here, the teacher said, I don't know what happened when they went abroad. You know, it put them to the top of this system, because they really saw value and they really saw appreciation, because they felt like the Caribbean was quite hard on them. You know what I mean?
Okay. So that's right. They do dwell it in them down there. I know that.
And so I think that being a child that was born here in England as well, the first generation that went to school in England, you know, we experienced a lot of racism. We experienced a lot of, even though we had the ability, the teachers would not give us our recognition. And, you know, so it did make us quite rebellious. So sometimes our parents would feel, look, we've come here, you've got good opportunities, this country has a good educational system, but you guys did not go school here to see the misjust of some of the teachers. And you could have the same ability as the person sitting next door to you, but due to your because you're a Caribbean person, you know, you could be treated unfairly because you're of colour, you know, because you was a black person. And now when conversations happen where teachers said, you know, I'm sorry, we were told that blacks were inferior, you know, they were brought up with a belief that blacks were inferior. So it's kind of balancing both sides, where our parents came to do the best for us, to make a better life for themselves and the family. But then we were in a system where we were being treated not according to our ability, but maybe according to our colour. And when we went back and spoke to our parents, it was like, do your best, you have an opportunity, you have education, you know, so there was a little bit of a distance. Would you say that, Carolyn, was fair to kind of sum it up?
Yeah, I think as well, our parents were working so hard as well, just to keep the family unit together. Yeah, and I suppose from their point of view, it would have been, we could have been privileged, more privileged than possibly them, in terms of having a free education, being able to go to school. but not really. I couldn't see myself talking to my mum and dad about things that were happening in school, unjust things that were happening in school. Just didn't go there. But I think as well, one thing I was thinking about for me that feels very different is I remember such a sense of community when I was growing up, a real sense of community that I feel, I don't know if it's because I have moved away from Slough, but it doesn't feel like there's a tight-knit community anywhere now. I don't know.
It don't feel
like there's a tight-knit community in the way that we grew up, where you could just go to anybody, any person that you knew, that your parents knew, and have that automatic respect for them because they were your elders, and you know they would look out for you whatever was happening, and even if you were doing bad, they would tell your parents, and in some cases you might get in trouble twice or three times over. But it doesn't feel like that network is there anymore.
Yeah, because even going back to Anguilla, that knitting about family link has gone. When we were growing up as children, our parents' first cousins were still our cousin, and through respect, we will call all of them cousins so-and-so by their name, but use that first title before. And then when I went down in 76, and I was calling those people that I grew up calling cousins, that generation started laughing at me and say, what? Calling in cousins? So even there, the barrier breakdown with family connection and respect. And here, you know, they may say uncle, auntie, and it stops there as well, and not follow on with the family link.
But I think what you're saying is important, Inez, because my dad would say growing up that anybody on the road, you know, as neighbours, or it didn't matter whether they were from Anguilla, Jamaica, Antigua, wherever, if they saw me doing wrong, my dad would give them permission, you know, to put me in order, you know.
Yeah.
Whether that was a strong word, or whether that was that they had to actually, you know, lift up their hand and, you know, correct me, they did that. But nowadays, with all of this child protection, and you cannot, you know, even as parent, you cannot even speak harshly to a child before it's kind of like, well, you're in it.
Abuse.
Yeah, abuse, you know. So that whole Esther Ranson era of correction and policy and that sort of thing, it made parents lose their control. And when parents lost their control, neighbours and, you know, so young people nowadays will say, I don't care. Whereas we had to respect all elders. We had to respect mum, dad, auntie, uncle. We had to respect the village. We had to respect, it took a village to raise a child. The young people don't have that same concept. So unless you're educating your family that way, they would not have that way of thinking, you know? So, but I think it's so important. And the reason why you guys are doing this recording is because so many of you are passing away, and we're not capturing your stories. We're not capturing what is important. We're not even capturing what makes you who you are. So we'll hear it at the church as somebody's eulogy, but it's just very, very important that we can capture and share some of your generation's thoughts, some of your generation's discipline, some of your generation's respect, because our children require that. Our children need role models from their own. They need to see Caribbean people saying, this is what I did. This is how I overcame. It was hard, but this is what I done. So this recording will go to be a part of your story, Mrs. Mussington, your story, Mrs. Dunn. It will be captured, it will be shared. Your children and your grandchildren will hear it. Because sometimes we might think we tried our best with our children and still they may disappoint us, but it might help some other children.
That's right.
So it's not always just for our own. It may help somebody else.
Yes.
So in our closing words, Mrs. Dunn, is there, if you could have a magic wand and you could make the powers that be, and we know for Caribbean people that is the God, that's the creator, that is Jesus. If you could use the powers to be and change government and change law, how would you want the story of the Caribbean people, the story of your people, how would you like that to be in the future?
Well, respect is the most one. You should have respect for everyone, no matter who they are, whether they're black or white. Respect. That's the most important thing. And the next thing is love each other the way you love yourself. And teach your children to love everybody, no matter who they are or what they may be. And that's it.
Mrs. Muffington, what would your magic wand and your words be?
I would like that if Black people reach the grades for jobs, that they are not denied that position in favor of a different generation, because everyone should have the same fair chance in promotions. And they are denied up till now from those type of positions. And for instance, there with this coronavirus thing, how the nurses are coming out more and speaking about how things have been for them. And they always go to the front for the most difficult bits. But when it comes to promotions, as you will see, whenever there's a promotion and the top of the health services, people speaking, you seldom see a Black person there. It's always the white. So they work very hard, but they do not get that promotion in their jobs. And that I would like a change in.
Great. Carolyn, have you got anything that if you could wave your magic wand that you would like to see?
I think echoing on from Auntie Nair's equality, I mean, a real true equality, not one where you may attend that work interview or job interview and automatically you know that the people on the other side interviewing you have closed off because you've walked in and the colour of your skin in their eyes doesn't match what you've put down qualification-wise on a piece of paper. I think our children in schools are sometimes dumbed down, and the quality of teachers that we have, sometimes that makes you beg to differ. I can't believe in this day and age that teachers have been referring in a college to their pupils as coming from mud huts in Africa. This is 2019 and it still happens. There's a lot of education that needs to come about, not just, I think, for everybody, for all of us. And I think in discerning that, we can't just blame it on or expect other people to change it for us. We have to get in there, get into the systems that make these decisions and work from within.
Yeah, I think that's beautifully said by all of you. And I think as well, sometimes for me, as a person of faith, you know, the kind of faith when I sat down with my grandmother and she would read her Bible. And sometimes it's like when we give it to the Lord, we are still trying to do it ourselves.
That's right.
And sometimes there is a real handing that wheel over and allowing and believing and affirming together that there will be a difference made. You know, sometimes we have to put our power there. Because what needs to be done in this world, man and woman, we don't have the ability to do that. So sometimes it is about truly putting that, you know, into the hands of the powers that can be and allowing them to do it. And that's not saying not to take action, but it's about taking good action. It's about taking action from a perspective of, you know, like with the young people going out and marching at the moment, I'm praying for them. I'm praying for them that they do not be taken into somebody else's agenda. Because sometimes they go to these marches and then there's somebody there that provoking them. And then the next thing you know, they're in trouble and they're going down a system that does not want good for them, you know? So sometimes I think it's about us really praying and really affirming for change, really affirming that God does the work. And
intervene, yes.
Yeah, he intervenes, and we understand that it's time for that. Because I think in an unjust system, that it will be very, very difficult. This system was designed, when the elders came and they said that the Queen's father, he decreed that the Caribbean people could only have menial work. So they were going to be working harder from the beginning. So when you guys are saying that somebody who has the ability and they're going for an interview, sometimes it's almost like the people of colour, the people who are in this country who have less qualifications, they would get that job. And we've seen these kind of things over and over and over and over again. So, yeah, we hope that song, when Sam Cooke said it's been a long time coming, but change is going to come. We really pray that we're living in a day where change will come. I've never experienced, none of you have ever experienced anything like this coronavirus. We've never experienced being locked in. We've never experienced, watching somebody being murdered, in front of our eyes in that manner. Even though we know these things have happened, like Auntie Nair says, social media brings it right in front of us. So we're living in a time like no other time, So I would just say, comfort yourself, protect your mind, because sometimes when you take in a lot of this negativity, it starts to make you feel down. So protect your mind, get your Bible out and guard yourself and protect yourself in the word. Keep associate with good people, with God people, with people who feed on the word as well, and just look after each other. It's beautiful to see you both on Zoom and to see that you both look very healthy and well. It always pains me. My mum died at 56 years old. She was a very, very young woman. Yeah, very young woman. But it's a pleasure when I see those who have, you guys are maturing beautifully. And I always smile and think, I'm going to play my part right to the end to make sure that there is freedom, justice and equality for all of us, And that would not just mean us as Black people. It would mean all people, all people. So I will continue to play my part to ensure that we can achieve that. And I know Carolyn will as well, because we're assigned to it. Our parents kind of did their part and we have to do ours. So Mrs. Dunn, thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Auntie Nair, thank you so much. Thank you for your contribution. Thank you for your story. Thank you for your advice, and I just keep praying that, one day we shall overcome, really and truthfully, and just let us encourage each other and support each other and remind each other that it's still a good day to be alive. So there's lots and lots of people that have passed with this coronavirus, and it's still a good day to be alive. And it doesn't matter what trials we have, it doesn't matter what comes, it's still a good day to be alive.
Yes.
So both of you are making a contribution to that. And there's many seniors that are in isolation feeling like, I can't take any more. And when they hear your WhatsApp, when they hear your stories, when they hear your contribution, it will lift them up. So thank you, you beautiful women, for your contribution. And thank you, Carolyn.
Thank you.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye, Mrs. Dunn. Bye, Anthony.
Bye. Thank you.
Take care of yourselves.
You too.
Okay, thanks. Bye.
Bye-bye.